All right, next up, we have Paolo, who's the CEO of Tether. Unfortunately, Paolo is not able to be here in person, so he is joining us remotely. They have an event that is going on in Switzerland. Paolo, how are you?
I'm great. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you perfectly. You look amazing. You sound amazing. We're ready to learn from you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Maybe where we can start is Tether is obviously the dominant stablecoin. How much of this adoption and usage is happening internationally outside the United States versus inside the US? And do you guys see any differences in the use cases or the trends in different geographies?
Well, I like to describe, our role as a stablecoin issuer as very, very important for certain regions of the world. Tether is not selling and onboarding US customers. The reason for that is simply that in the US, there are 15, 20, 30 different ways to pay for things. There is PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, people have bank accounts, debit cards, credit cards. Even with debit cards, my understanding is that from latest numbers is that $1.4 trillion could be taken as theft on debit cards. Now, imagine try to go outside the US and Europe and stop anyone in the streets and ask a simple question. Would you prefer your local national currency or the US dollar? And 99% of the people will answer the US dollar. There are 5 billion people in the world that live in high inflation countries, and there are 3 billion people in the world that don't have a bank account. These are not bad people. These are just people that are too poor of being of interest of banks. They generate too few commissions per year. They don't generate $100, $200 of commissions per year for the banks in order for the banks to be attracted to these segments of users and community. So think about Turkey, where the local national currency, the Turkish lira, has lost 80% of its value against the US dollar in 5 years, or the Argentina peso in Argentina lost 98% of its value against the dollar. So if you look at all those different environments, you as a company, as a private company like Tether, you have to decide where you want to go, where you want to pick your battles. And honestly, other than fighting against 50 other different payment methods in Europe or the US, we should go where there are people that don't have other options, just because the only option that they had before was just cash. And cash is not very helpful when you want to create a future for your family. And in a way, I like to describe, if a stablecoin issuer would sell, stable coins into the US, to me is like, trying to sell an ice bucket to an Eskimo, right? It could be controversial, but in my opinion, and I never heard a person in Wall Street, complaining of the fact that they could not move money from one account to another. And you can hear an enormous number of people saying that they have, at the end of the month, they don't have any way to store wealth. They never had in their lives a saving account, nor a checking account, right? So basic single things. We talk about financial inclusion. We talk about, all these type of things. But for someone that looks at the emerging markets, feels like many companies that are talking about financial inclusion are doing it just as a marketing pitch. While with Tether, we are actually focusing on those regions because are the ones that need our product the most.
I recently saw a study that came out, I think it was from your head of economics. He said that there was 330 million on-chain users of Tether, and that obviously doesn't account for people on the exchanges. And so do you have an estimate for how many users are using this? And then also, what numbers can you share in terms of transaction volumes or just signals as to how big this has now become?
Yeah, so we have seen more than 130 million wallets on chain, but there are tens of millions of people that are using USDT only on centralized exchanges, so they will not pop up on blockchain analysis. And if you think about people that live in emerging markets, they honestly don't care about which blockchain. They don't care if it's Ethereum. They don't care if it's Tron. they need just a digital dollar because for them, the dollar is the best currency in the world. And it's actually the best currency, fiat currency in the world, right? The best currency in the world, we all know that it's Bitcoin. Now, the other really staggering statistic is that Philip Gradwell is our head of economics and the former chief economist at Chainalysis. Evaluated also what is the pace of growth of new wallets and usage of USDT on chain alone. Again, it's harder when it comes to centralized exchanges, but on chain we are seeing more than 30 million new wallets per quarter. And trust me, I asked him many times to review the number because it blew my mind. So the number of USDT wallets are growing. I'm repeating myself at more than 30 million per quarter. It's almost insane. And I asked myself why this is happening. And unfortunately, it's kind of a sad realization. This is happening because the success and the growth and this almost parabolic growth of adoption of USDT across emerging markets in developing countries is directly proportional to the failure of many economies around the world. And sure, I mean, if you are a private company, it brings good value, good numbers, but the feeling that we have, and it's not great because it means that there is something that actually is not working in the world. And luckily, we are providing an option. So I'm glad that Tether is around providing an option, a lifeline to many communities. But it means that what is had been attempted at the current state of the global finance is not very healthy.
So one of the things that surprised me as I looked more and more into the stablecoin market is just how much institutions are either already using stablecoins or trying to use stablecoins. I think the story historically has been like these are individuals exclusively using this technology. Talk a little bit about institutional adoption. What are these people doing at these organizations with stablecoins? And do you see stablecoins eventually becoming the dominant preferred method for moving money for institutions?
Well, I think that one of the most interesting trends of stablecoins is going to be, and is being already now, its adoption by commodity traders for international trade. The beauty of it is that the stablecoins are running on transparent transport layer called blockchains. The beauty of blockchain is that information stored there cannot be canceled. You cannot, whatever you do, it will remain like that for the rest of the time. So, sometimes when you use banking rails, information is opaque, can be changed, can be tampered with. With blockchain, you cannot do that. And blockchains are faster, are cheaper as a much better way to move money. It's more efficient. And so it's definitely one of the winning case, cross-border payments and commodity trading, like buy cotton, selling cotton, oil and so on, is going to be stablecoins are going to be a fundamental part of that transactional volume.
One of the questions I continue to get from people, and my brain is too small to figure this out, so hopefully you can help us, is, okay, I believe that stablecoins are going to be much bigger in the future. How do I make money off of the trend? Because in most areas in crypto, if I think that Bitcoin's going to be bigger, I buy Bitcoin. If I think a smart contract platform is going to be bigger, I buy that token. A stablecoin is worth only $1. And so most people would love to be an investor in your business. You seem to have a great business with lots of profit, probably one of the best businesses in the world. But what are the other ways that you think people can benefit as investors from the rise of stablecoins?
I think, definitely Tether has a great business, but we believe in this business for 10 years. I think how many challenges and attacks that we had to fend, and controversy and so on. The good thing about our company is that we stay focused, right? Of course, now that works, everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon, and it's understandable, right? So I think that the future will bring so many different stablecoins with different flavors and options, and I think it's great, right? I'm very humbled that the technology that Tether created 10 years ago is now being used by central banks or potentially, banks, regional banks, and is actually creating new opportunities. I think that think about just the remittances business. When in general, if you think about the emerging markets, developing countries, around between 10 and 20% of their GDP is remittances. And the opportunity there is actually to build technology that leverages stablecoin to remove the unnecessary intermediaries from the equation of remittances, saving a lot of money to the poor people that, for example, they have. Imagine a person that lives in Philippines, and or has a family in Philippines, and go to Europe to work and accrue some money over the month to try to send part of that money back to the Philippines to help the family. That is the concept of remittances. So already put yourself in the shoes of a person that works and spend the entire month and year far from the family. So this person now is charged 5, 6, 10, 20% to send money on a digital ledger, because money for most of it is already digital. So these people are charged a lot of money in an unfair way. So I think that the next step for entrepreneurs is actually leveraging what the new opportunity that the stablecoins are bringing to create actually programmable money that serves different use cases, as said, from remittances, cross-border payments, commodity trading, trading in general, online global FX markets, on chain, and the opportunities are actually endless. There are also, again, I see many other stablecoins trying different things. For example, there are stablecoins that are looking to provide or share the yield from the investments back to the holders. In my opinion, it's quite risky because it could lead to consider that specific stablecoin as security. I know that some of our competitors doing it, that people are. Point being is that people are trying different approaches, because it seems like a very, very hot topic. The profitability of running a stablecoin.
When we mentioned that you have a great business and maybe one of the best businesses in the world, my back of the napkin math is you do something like $60 million in profit per employee, which would put you at a 60x metric of some of the greatest technology companies like Facebook, Google, et cetera. So you guys make a lot of money. You have a very small team relative to the performance there. There's many people both in this room and globally who would love to be a shareholder in Tether. Is there any plans for you to ever go public or somehow allow for people to participate in the equity of Tether?
Well, I don't want to be unpopular. I think that I think the company should go public when they have problem or they need to access capital. So they need to increase the size of the company, and they want to invest in the company, and rightfully so they go public to have a better access to that type of liquidity. To me, Tether made in the last 2 years 12 billion in profits, of which most of the profits, the vast majority, has to remain in the company and went into further investments to create distribution networks, to purchase distribution networks, also invest in other areas from artificial intelligence and other parts. By the way, all outside of the reserves, right? So these investments are outside of the reserves of the stablecoin, just to be clear. Now, the point of going public to me is that, I think that Tether to me is the once in 100 years opportunity. Is a company that is very profitable, is run by people that love Bitcoin, is run by people that love freedom. We love the concept of independence, disintermediation, and resilience. So being public feels to me that it will impair our ability to move fast, to take decisions disruptive for the status quo and for the establishment of the traditional financial world. So, I like the liberty that gives me to not have to, be worried about, the grade that I will get after 3 months or every quarter by analysts that don't see my vision and they don't have my passion to try to help the unbanked, the hundreds of millions and billions of unbanked in the world. That is my primary concern. Look, 10 years ago, Tether started with a simple idea. And if you have, told me back then that we would become so big, I would, ask you if we're, mental, because no one could predict this growth and this rapid growth. And we are very content of the results that we made. to us is much more important the mission that we have, and the fact that with the learnings that we had from the stablecoin, from USDT, but also from Bitcoin, we can implement them in other aspects of the technology, from the telecommunication. The telecommunication, social media is also intermediated. For most part, is completely unnecessary intermediation. Education is too intermediated. Artificial intelligence is already very politicized and very, very intermediated. And so I think that the learnings that we had from Bitcoin and the USDT and the success we had can be repurposed and applied to different areas. And so that's why I want to remain independent and keep focusing on that, because it's the right thing to do, especially for all the countries that don't have the same luck of the US and Europe.
One of the things you said that may surprise people is that you're a big supporter of Bitcoin. I think people look at in crypto, if you are involved with a coin or a chain, there's a little bit of tribalism. There's a little bit of competition that goes on. But you all don't just talk about being supporters of Bitcoin. We don't have enough time to list all of the things you all have done for Bitcoin, funding of developers, et cetera. But talk a little bit as to the relationship you see moving forward between Bitcoin and kind of the store of value, and then stable coins like Tether.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bitkey. They are the hardware wallet built for Bitcoin. They're made by the team behind Square and Cash App. Bitkey makes securely managing your Bitcoin absurdly simple. Bitkey is integrated with partners like Cash App, Coinbase, Robinhood, and Blockchain.com, so you can easily compare prices across exchanges before you buy or sell. And their app works like the money apps you already use, because simplicity is the best form of security. Send, receive, and track your wallet value over time, all in one place. Time Magazine named Bitkey one of the best inventions of 2024. Their simple 3-key approach to self-custody replaces complex features like seed phrases that make traditional wallets hard to use and easy to lose. Give the gift of simplified self-custody to the Bitcoin person in your life. And if that's you, get Bitkey and sit back and relax while the sats stack. For a limited time, you can get Bitkey for $99. That's $51 off the normal price. Get yours today online at Amazon, Best Buy, or bitkey.world. That's bitkey.world. Go check out Bitkey today and start securely managing your Bitcoin in an absurdly simple way.
Bitcoin, to me, is the perfect currency, right? Especially in the last 50 years, fiat money has been governed by humans in a way, right? So especially after 1971, when the gold backing was removed from fiat currencies, we have seen over and over different decision makers taking decisions, monetary policy decisions on how to change, the effects of like money printing and so on. And to me, Bitcoin is the only form of currency governed by math, right? In our universe, we have two things that are pretty solid. One is physics, but even physics, right? There is a difference. There is quantum physics and there is the general relativity. And we don't know yet how the two things could combine together. So still with physics, we have some, we don't understand it completely. But math is different, right? We can prove math, and cryptography is math. And we know that math is there and it is perfect and can resist to the wrath of God. So is not subject, it is not dependent from the changes of humor and interests of humans. So at least we need to have at least one certainty in our life. And when it comes to protecting wealth, preserving wealth, and that is Bitcoin. Now, as big Bitcoiner proponents, we go around the world and we do education. The reality of things is that most of the people that we talk to in poorer countries, they don't have, and rightfully so, they don't have the time of us geeks in a way to understand Bitcoin, understand all the implication, and understand how it works. But they understand one thing very well, that the US dollar is better their currency. So what we are thinking about is how we can anyway use USDT as a way to onboard people on a digital wallet and over time guide them, through education towards Bitcoin, the best asset in the world.
My last question for you is, you're not a central bank, you're not a country, but you have a lot of people who are holding dollars there's a strong argument you are increasing dollar dominance globally. Stablecoin issuers collectively have become one of the top 15 or 16 buyers of treasuries, and so has become kind of a net new buyer, which is really important to the U.S. government that wants to sell debt. But there's a lot of people who would say, why doesn't the government just nationalize, whether it's Circle or Tether or name a popular stablecoin? What do you think the relationship between nation states, central banks, and stablecoin issuers will be moving forward? And if you were in one of these countries in a position of influence or in the central bank, what would you do as you see the rise of stablecoins?
Well, it's always about balance, right? So when you are a stablecoin issuer like Tether, you ask yourself questions. Of course, you need to be in a situation where you are helpful and you are net positive for the world, and also you are net positive for governments, right? As of today, for example, we have around 100 billion in U.S. treasuries. We are not a country, but if we were a country, we would be the 18th country in the world for how many T-bills and treasuries we hold. And I think that another functionality, and that we prove to the world, actually, not many think about this feature of USDT, is that we know how China, for example, sold many T-bills in the last few years, from $2 trillion to now less than 800 billion, I think. And one of these issues that that situation presented is the fact that usually with governments holding other governments, foreign governments holding your own debt, you have single decision makers deciding to press a button and start decreasing their exposure to, for example, the US debt. The interesting thing that the USDT created is actually the decentralization of the decision making of selling the US debt. For every person that is in Argentina, every person that is in Turkey that are holding or buying USDT, we take that money and we buy a piece of it. But will not take the decision altogether to sell their USDT or hence to dispose of the US debt. So the level of resilience that USDT is bringing to the US dollar and the US debt is unprecedented. So that is one of the least understood features to me, but it's also one of the best. But on the other side, so we are helpful to the US, but on the other side, there is the argument that, of course, other countries where the population are using USDT a lot might feel in a different way. So they might be upset that there is an expanded dollar dominance. But the reality is that people are looking always for better alternatives. In the poor countries, people try to buy gold chains or gold rings or whatever. People will always try to find a way to protect themselves and their families from inflation in their local currency. So I had personally, and as a group, we had so many discussions with central banks and the ministers of finance of different emerging markets. And actually, they were very, very excited because on one side, you could see how people in these countries are turning to USDT to have an edge against inflation. But on the other side, the amount of remittances that are being sent into these countries in USDT is enormous. We're seeing that already a percentage on average that is above 4% and below 10% usually of dollar remittances that are going in on a yearly basis now into emerging markets is already done in USDT. So if you want to see the reason why USDT is so big, it's not about crypto trading anymore. It's actually, is becoming the transport of wealth across continents.
Paolo, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know you guys have a huge event going on yourselves. And so I think that from everyone here, also thank you for all the work you guys have done, not only in getting stablecoins into the hands of hundreds of millions of people, but also all the work you've done around Bitcoin. You guys probably deserve more credit than you get. And so we appreciate it.
Thank you, Pomp. Thank you very much for having me.